connected to these microphones.
She said it's working now.
There we
Great.
go.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay,
So we will probably need to say all of that again, just so that we have it
okay,
for
from the
those who are
beginning.
watching.
All right.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Fine. Okay,
We're good.
we're good. Okay.
I don't know if you need to go with that.
Y'all tell me what to do.
Yeah, let's just get started.
Okay, we'll start with agenda item 1, 1804 Sam Rittenberg Boulevard.
All right, thank you, Aaron.
Just one second.
Yes. The staff's gonna give project context and overview.
All right, thank you, Aaron. My name is Brad Thomas. I'll be presenting this application. Here we have just an aerial view, just giving some context for the site. And then a more close-up view of that site where the little red pinpoint is. The site is currently vacant right now. Another zoom in there. Staff went out to the site to take some photos facing the site from the public right of way. Here we are on, I believe, Ashley River Road, looking towards the intersection there. This is also from Ashley River Road, looking towards the intersection at the site. Here we are on Sam Rittenberg, looking towards the site with the intersection to the right. And now we will have the applicants present their presentation.
I'm Shelby Bates from Miller Signs.
If you could go up to the podium, please.
And let me know when you'd like me to advance the slides. I've got your presentation in here.
I'm Shelby Bates from Miller Signs. We are asking the board to please reconsider the signs that we're asking for. We don't feel like we're asking for too much. The other businesses on the adjacent corners, they have all got signs on each side of the building, plus 2 monuments. We're asking for 2 monuments and only 3 signs. For one thing, they said it was excessive, but if you're driving down on either road, so let's just take Sam Rittenberg, for example. If you're driving down Sam Rittenberg Road and it's really, really busy, you've got a lot of traffic, people changing lanes at the last minute, they're in a turn only lane, they don't realize that they're getting out of it. And you're trying to keep from getting hit, you're trying to hit, keep from hitting anybody, and now you're looking for the bank. Well, from a certain part down the road, you can see the monument. But what if you can't take your eyes off the road at that time? And then by the time you finally take your eyes off the road and start looking for the bank again, you're kind of right out on the side of the monument and you can't really read the monument where you can look up and see the sign on the building. But if we can't have the sign on the building, then you're kind of missing it. So it would improve visibility, and the same thing from the other side. It would just improve visibility. Plus the letters on the monument are kind of small, so that's not as easy to see as it would be on the side of the building as well.
You go on monument signs.
Could you
I'm
state your
Jerry.
name? Yeah, thank you.
I'm Jerry Renyard. I am the construction manager for First National Bank. And if you go back to the slide with the monument sign, those letters are only about 5-inch letters. So it'd be, well, people my age understand that 5-inch letters at a decent distance are pretty hard to read, especially if they're illuminated. And it being, to scale right there, you're just over 6 foot. If you're on the other side of Sam Rittenberg coming up, you're not really going to, with traffic there, you're not really going to see all of that monument. And having something higher, bigger letters will definitely help with, establishing our corner there. again, I don't think it'll throw any, you know, of course, we went by the light pollution, we've done all our calculations. You do have on the adjacent corners, more signs actually on both adjacent corners than we're asking that. But, you know, and I do understand the other comment was made on the site about the directionals coming in, no problem with deleting those. I do understand, yeah, they're probably kind of a little redundant. You can really tell what's in, what's out. So, but that's basically our case. We'll leave it up to the board here and see what they say.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board for the applicant?
I have one. Adriana Carson. It's just one monument sign.
Two monuments.
It's doing each
Yeah,
side.
it's, actually, if there's a monument, here and here. And these ABs, those were the directional signs that we would remove.
And I just want to point out where the facade signs are on 3 sides of the building, if you see where I'm pointing.
Yeah,
Can you see where?
actually, yeah, the signs that were recommended we delete was actually 4 and 3 on each side of the building. And, you know, coming from this direction on Wittenberg and even this direction, I can't remember the name of that road,
61.
61, you're not gonna see any signage other than these monuments. And with I said the monuments mark the entrances really well, but you know, not being very big letters they're gonna be tough to read from any kind of distance. We'd love people to be able to see it from a distance and say, hey, there's my bank.
Thank you. I have a clarification question. When you said, you pointed to, I think you said A and B, you said those are the ones you would remove?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand. Those are the ones you'd remove that you're asking to remove or
No,
that
actually, the board asked us to remove.
asked you to remove? Okay,
Yes.
I just want to
We'd
make
like to
sure.
keep them all, but
Okay.
we understand that's a little redundant. You know,
Okay.
so we're happy to give those up, hopefully if we could at least have the building signs.
And are those the only places where there's 2 sets of directional signage, 2 monuments, and then the 3 building facade signs, right? Just to make
Yes,
sure we're all clear.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Everything else, there are some, yeah, that's it. That's it. We didn't even, usually we'll have some directionals
So
actually
7
on the
total.
site, but I don't see any directionals on the site.
There's technically 2 facade signs,
Yeah, okay.
how it reads on the intersection facade, because they're on different wall planes. But it's essentially.
1 and 2,
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, if you go, you want to
so 8.
run it over to the front view of the,
1 and 2 is actually one sign,
right
yeah.
there, right there. Yeah,
They're
that's
just split
the
up.
actual front of the building
Yeah.
that will be towards the intersection. There's no traffic that goes in front of the building. So, yeah, that one's actually facing directly to the intersection. We kind of count that as one sign because it's really the same parts as we use on the side signs. They're just separated because of that, the size of the wall right there. And we'd like to mark that front entrance with the logo. It just tells people where to go inside.
And are these all illuminated?
They are.
And here's the side views.
And you see those are a little smaller when they're front, especially the logo smaller, or not small.
You go to the next one, the monument and wayfinding stuff. So there's 2 of those. Can you go back to the wayfindings?
I do want to point out that if these are permitted, they still need to be sized down because they're larger than what they're permitted to be. The ordinance says they can only be 3 feet high and a square footage of 4 feet.
4 square feet.
And they've got their signs 4 feet high and 5.3 square feet sign face. And then also the First National Bank would not be permitted for the ordinance.
And that's, we run into that. And that 4 feet is actually just the total length of the sign. We usually vary them to 2 feet deep, so they're only 2 feet high. But you're right, that they need to go down to, and in fact, they would be under 4 feet like they are, because they're actually 1'6" tall, 2'8" wide.
The face can only be 4 feet.
4 square feet.
But, yeah.
Which looks like it's gonna be pretty.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking too, pretty
Well, that's
close,
2
but we
feet
can
eight
sign,
up top, Yeah.
yeah, it's 2'8" by.
But once the
If
First
you-
National Bank letters come out,
Yes, true, very true, yep.
Okay.
We can adjust that on our next, get everything right on.
Any other questions from the board?
If you were gonna delete some signs
Okay,
and or keep some signs, which signs do you think are the most important?
well, I
As
mean, to me, all the facade signs are very important, just because that's our highest visibility. It would be, I mean, we'll say, I'd love to have them all. But, I do, let's see, let me back through.
It sounds to me like earlier you were saying the front facade sign is the least visible and the two.
It is, but it also marks the entrance of the building.
Yeah.
So, and that would look pretty strange if it didn't have that sign on.
same
Either
question.
Traffic from either direction, maybe if we had, I had to get rid of one. Stuff,
I do want to offer clarification too. I know for this front facade, you're reading it as one, like you are counting it as one.
but
Our zoning ordinance counts it by the sign, how we calculate a sign face.
okay.
And this would technically be counted as two. So I just
The
want to
other
make that
signs
clear.
counted as two?
These are counted as two because the wall planes
Oh,
are what
okay.
count,
Okay.
are what provide the dimensions
Okay.
Okay.
as like a backing.
Okay, well, I can only make the argument that, the other buildings have the same amount of signs on that same intersection. That they all have 4 sets of signs. And even counting that as 2, I'd still have 4 signs. Yeah, no, I tell you, I would have a hard time telling you which one to delete, because now you're getting into marketing people. And you can get my head cut off from my marketing people, but, I would just, I'll leave my case as it is, and then just let y'all decide what you feel like.
Staff recommendation? Oh, wait, I'm supposed to ask, is there anyone from the public here to speak on this? Okay, now we'll move to staff recommendations. Y'all can take your seat.
Staff observations, the subject property is currently vacant and located at the intersection of Sam Rittenberg and Ashley River Road. The proposed bank structure is positioned at an angle towards the intersection with facades fronting both street frontages and the intersection itself. There are curb cuts for ingress, egress to the subject property, and they are located on both rights of way. And the proposed building has entrances on both the western facade that faces the intersection and the northern facade that faces Ashley River Road. The applicant has a total of 8 proposed signs, with 4 of those being facade signs, 2 monument signs, and 2 directional signs. Unlike the signs on the northern and southern facades, those are signs 3 and 4. The signs on the intersection facing facade, signs 1 and 2, are not counted as one sign because they are located on 2 different facade planes, like I stated earlier. Staff is, we're getting to staff comments. Staff is supportive of the overall fonts, colors, words, images, height, size, and materials of the signage package. Staff denied the submitted signage package based on the determination that the quantity and types of signage were excessive, repetitive, and or redundant in relation to the scale and aesthetics of the proposed building and overall site. Here we have that the design review board is not affected by and has the right to vary from signage regulations found in the zoning ordinance, specifically in Article 4, which is the signage regulations. When it comes to considering and acting on signage applications within its purview, signs also may be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and an applicant is not awarded the right to a particular number, design, height, or type of sign. And below you is just the, that's where staff got the information from, is the zoning ordinance there and the DRB policy statement for signs. Directional signs 11 and 12 simply indicate, and these are the directional signs, they simply indicate the natural point of ingress provided by the curb cut. As the arrows point in the same direction, vehicles would already be traveling. Furthermore, the arrows do not provide meaningful assistance in guiding the public to any specific banking function. They also contain the name of the bank, which is not allowed on directional signage as it constitutes advertising rather than wayfinding and is necessary for clarification purposes as the bank is the sole business on the subject property. Staff determined that freestanding signs 14 and 15 effectively fulfill the primary functions of advertising, identification, and wayfinding that were intended for both directional signs and facade signs. Since they are positioned near the curb cuts closest to the building frontages facing Sam Rittenberg and Ashley River Road, the freestanding signs guide the public to the property's entrances while also identifying and advertising the businesses to passing traffic, fulfilling the intended functions of both directional and facade signage. There is also additional signage, signs 1 and 2, on the intersection facade, further helping identify and locate the business. The application is an appeal of a prior staff decision to deny the proposed signage package, so staff would not make a recommendation on this.
Is there anything the applicant would like to clarify based on staff's comments?
No, I mean, that pretty well explains it as I
Okay.
understand it.
Great, thank you. Now we'll move into board discussion and a motion.
I drove by the site this morning, both on Sam Rittenberg and Highway 61. And that is a very busy intersection. There's a lot of stuff going on. And while I'm glad to see something there besides an empty Burger King that's been there forever, I think it's also really important for us to look at ways to reduce visual clutter and noise, kind of visual noise in the area. So I'm going to support the staff decision.
Is that a move to vote to support it?
Yes, I'll make that up.
Can we just clarify a couple things first with staff? So we kind of have three things going on. The building signage, which it seems the issue staff took was more of, was it because of the zoning ordinance? It wasn't necessarily a, from the perspective of you guys thought it looked too much or anything like that, or it was?
No, it was the DRB policy that we were going off of, that it's not, we can vary from what the zoning ordinance allows an applicant.
Yeah.
So an applicant is allowed by the zoning ordinance to have a facade sign on every facade that faces a public right of way. But the DRB staff can evaluate the site and the building and whatnot.
That's what I was getting at.
Yes.
So is it, do you guys have the authority, or was it just the board and you were just adhering to the?
No,
letter of the law?
DRB staff,
Okay, so you're taking an issue with it?
yes.
Okay, the points you made about the wayfinding signs
Mhm.
made a lot of sense, that they do just point in the same direction. And then the monument signs, I forget what the comments about the monument signs were.
That they essentially mark where the curb cuts are, since
So
they're
you were
located
supportive
so
of that?
close. We were supportive of the two monument signs, but if we were supportive of the two monument signs and the facade signs at those same, on those same facades at the end, that the right of ways wouldn't be needed because there's advertisement for the business from the monument signs.
So I just want to make sure if we went with staff recommendation, it would be the two on the intersection side,
The two monument signs.
the two
and then-
monument signs, the two facade signs on the intersection.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes,
Just those four signs.
so four
And Sam
signs.
Rittenberg is a right in, right out only.
Mhm.
I need to ask you what you were clarifying. You said yes to, she asked if we're allowing the two monument signs and the two facade signs.
The two on the same side, the intersection side.
It's- well,
So they're considered two because they're separate
I'm
building
sorry, I
pieces.
thought you were asking about
Yes.
the two
Yeah.
lines. Thank you.
Yes.
We're all clear now.
I agree that reducing the visual clutter is important there. All those signs make it actually harder to find your way than to simply know where you're going. You have to search everything. So I agree, reducing the signs is important, but it seems like you either need the monument or the building, but you definitely don't need both. And so I support the staff. I would tend towards leaving the ones on the building and deleting the monuments, but that's.
Then we can leave that up to them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would hand that off to the staff to work it out.
If I remember correctly, we offered another option via email where we said you could, I forget what it was, but we did offer another solution. Where I think we were keeping the two on the side, getting rid of the two on the intersection facade, but essentially just having two facade signs and no monument signs. That was an option, but
I think since signage is something that staff handles anyways, all that we need to determine is whether or not we're
Mhm.
supporting staff or not.
Okay.
Right.
We're-
Or the
Yeah,
appeal.
we
Yeah.
don't need to give any this. sign or that
specifics,
sign.
okay.
So I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that we deny the application and uphold the staff decision.
I second.
So we have a motion to uphold staff decision and a second. I'll call roll. Sam,
In favor?
Lucas,
Yes, in favor.
I'm also in favor. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is 1109 Wapoo Road, requesting conceptual approval for a new one-story retail building. We'll let staff give an overview since it's a new project.
And I'll move out.
Oh, yes,
yes.
you're refusing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Again, this is just a context photo of, or some context photos, I should say, of the site. Again, here we are on the right of way here with the site to the left. This is their existing signage on the property and the business behind it. Another view there that we see. Some additional context photos. Here's the current building for the business at the very end of that cul-de-sac. And now we're gonna turn it over to the applicants for their presentation.
My name's Nick Alford.
Right. Do you think y'all need more than 10 minutes or?
Okay, we'll try to squish it in.
Okay.
Like it has been said, this is some of the properties off Wapoo Road. They've been using the space since early in 2023. They're currently leasing the building that you saw the photo in. We have 3.3 acres in total, no wetlands on site. We only have 4 existing trees. All trees will be retained. And there would be a combination of dry pond and underground detention.
Yeah, let me know when you like, they have.
These are the only ones on site. We do have some grand trees that border the site. Those are being maintained as well. Then we have a 15-foot landscape buffer up along Wapoo and a 5-foot perimeter landscape buffer that surrounds the property and screens all of the vehicular use and rental equipment in the back. Well, this is our dry pond up here and underground detention, underground detention. Yeah, like I said, we got a landscape plan in there. Mostly natives. We do have one that's not a native in there. I'll head it over to Walt.
Good evening, I'm Walsey Knight with LFK Architects. David, if it works for you, I think it might be page 24. Yeah, if we can back up just one or two slides to the aerial. Yeah, I think it might be slide 24.
We have different page numbers now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if we can back up one or two more slides. Yeah, that's perfect.
Oops, sorry.
Right there. And so we have Ashley River Road and we have the Ashley Oaks Retail Center that we're actually kind of abut the rear alleyway. Sort of a little bit of a light industrial flex and then the existing Sunbelt, and behind us is self-storage. Next slide, please. Just a little enlargement of some of the business uses around us. We have some contracting, some boat and RV repair, flooring companies. This is the existing Sunbelt, and we're right across the street from the Roots and Shoots Nursery. And again, Ashley Oaks is kind of the neighbor to the north. Next slide, please. Context pictures, same as you guys saw before. Thanks for already showing those. Let's go next slide. I thought this one was really important. This is the Ashley Oaks Shopping Center. And so again, that's kind of the alleyway, their rear service that we abut. And this is our parcel right here to the right, where Sunbelt has owned that for a few years and does have some equipment there currently. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, and then this is the opposing side of the Ashley Oaks Shopping Center here. And then just across the street, again, some of the context here along Wahoo Road with the nursery. And then if we could skip ahead to the proposed floor plan, which a little bit, there we go. So just a little bit about the program. So we're 7,950 square feet. The front of the building has been designed to really address the corner of Amy Isley and Wahoo Road. And so this is the sales office, this is the business office, and this is the retail floor in this area. If a customer comes in and wants to purchase something or rent something, this is kind of the typical entry point here on the parking lot. If you're going to pick up some large equipment, then you would drive through the gate. This is pickup and drop off, little canopy here. And we're screening everything within the service yard with opaque fencing here. Maintenance and service area, and then wash bay in the back. So if we can skip ahead 2 slides, please. So as part of our site analysis, we've gone out and measured some of the context. So we have some pre-engineered metal buildings here, some old residential buildings that are left over here that's been converted into a pet spa. And again, the Ashley Oaks Shopping Center up here. But just wanted to show this so you can kind of see the context of the screen wall that we have that's fronting Amy Isley and Wahoo Road. And this is a 10-foot opaque fence here and then a gate on the front. Next slide, please. And then just a view from the rear of the site. This is a good view to point out. We do have fuel and propane tanks, our stations that are in the central part of the site. And again, all this is screened from Amy Isley and Wahoo Road. This would be the wash bay also in the back here. Next slide, please. And just a bird's eye of the curb cut. And in this area, the fence actually translates into a little bit more of the architecture of the building. So we have a concrete base. We have some of the steel and slat work that matches and kind of complements the building. As we get further back in the site, we go to a wood, kind of a wood stockade fence, and in the very back, there's an existing chain link fence with barbed wire as you get back further. So if we can skip a slide here. Okay. There you go. So now getting into the streetscape. So this is how we might experience the building from Wahoo Road and Amy Isley Drive. Again, having the building kind of front and acknowledge this corner here with storefront glass on each side. Next slide, please. Just kind of ground level streetscape of the entry. This would be the primary customer entry, and then secondary entry here if you're doing pickup and drop off of bigger equipment. Next slide. This is the view from Amy Isley Drive. I would like to point out that the topography sometimes can be a little bit tricky in the 3D software. And so in full transparency, the site actually steps up here about 4 feet. So this fence line that you see, which is 10 feet tall, is actually going to appear slightly higher. So I don't think we're actually going to see any of the doors on this side of the building. And if we could please skip ahead a slide. Oh, that's the wash bay. We're partially screening that as it fronts Amy Isley. And next slide, please. This is fuel tanks. And next slide. Okay, we can skip on ahead. There you go, one more. Okay, and so I'll wrap up with the exterior materials palette. So the building massing accent in the front is this smooth face CMU, which is a calcite color. We've got this ivory mortar, which matches the cottonwood brick on the front facade here. We've got precast, concrete lintel accents, and storefront windows. We have 2 different types of canopies. So we have this cantilever metal extruded canopy on the front, on each corner of the building. And once we get back to the service side, we go with the canopies and the tie rods. This is that slat wall screen from the secondary customer area. These are our accents for the overhead doors, where we can completely close those off with these big barn door accents. And then the upper band of the building here is metal, but the metal simulates every 8 to 12 inches. It simulates more of a board and batten profile versus a standard industrial profile for the metal. And then we have a standing seam metal roof. So we got more elevations and sections. If there's any questions, though, we're happy to jump into those.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? And you did it in under 10, so good job.
Couple of questions. One, do y'all plan on replacing the sidewalk on Wapu Road?
Not sure if it's being slated to be tore up and replaced or if it would be used as is, but I can answer that question. And get
Yeah, it looked like to me, from the site plan that it was not being replaced. But from the 3D renderings, it looked like you were showing a much wider sidewalk than what's existing. The one that's existing is only it's less than 4.5 feet wide. It's actually pretty narrow. I'd like to see wider, but it's also gotten kind of beaten up over the years. There's a lot of cracks and stuff in it, and I'd recommend that y'all replace it as part of this project. Also like to correct you, you have way more than one non-native plant. The sign is going to remain, correct? Okay. Okay, and just a comment, I actually applaud the fact that you use more plants in your front buffer than were required. Again, the 3D rendering showed what looked like big ornamental grass going across there, but on the planting plan, it's actually Ophiopogon japonica, mondo grass, which only gets about this tall. So just in the future, as this moves forward, just be a little bit more accurate in your 3D representation. But at the same time, I would encourage you to use something more impactful than mondo grass. I also noticed there was a lot of mondo grass for the foundation planting.
Any other board question?
I got a couple
Okay.
easy ones. The barn doors at the roll-up door, are those, is it added security something, or is it more aesthetic? Because I'm assuming they slide in front.
Yeah. So it's more aesthetic. We just really were wanting to try to cover up those doors from Amy Isley.
Yeah.
And just kind of get back to the building palette, a warmer material that sort of complemented some of the other architectural features on the building.
And you had that one precedent of another location, I guess, and that kind of center, the CMU monument
Yeah.
chimney kind of looking thing. In the precedent, it was more pronounced. And are we running in, was there a reason to shrink it, or are we running into height stuff here with
Yeah.
zoning?
So we really tried to redesign, I mean, we like that facade. But really, we were just trying to scale the building down a little bit. This one had the flat parapet roof, we're proposing a gable. We've added extra storefront, so there's some things we've done. We've added some brick. So we sort of intentionally deviated for this specific site.
So I got,
Go
Okay,
ahead, Sam. Yeah.
what is the 10-foot fence on Amy Elsie? What is the material on the really large fence?
Yeah, so we were just thinking this is gonna be like a 1x6 stained fence with a cap on it, so it's just wood at this point.
I would, as a comment, I'd like to see it landscaped a little more along the fence
We should
itself.
save our comments for
Okay.
board discussion or motion, and this is just for questions for them, things they can clarify for us. And I have a question about the site plan, and I know that drainage isn't part of our discussion, but I do think site design is really important here. And since particularly being in the overlay where, you know, the building is supposed to be addressing the streets that it faces, and in this case, it technically faces 2 rights away. I'm curious about the placement of that stormwater pond. And if, you know, other locations were considered, or if there would be a way to, like, I don't know, because instead of helping the building to address the street, it really creates this kind of unusual separation from the street. But I don't know if y'all looked at any other, just from a design perspective, ways to make that work so that the building could have a better connection to the street.
I know the natural topography of the site is kind of on a hill sloping towards Wahoo. Currently, to bring that building up in front, the right of way more would require more fill to get everything to drain to the rear of the property, which I assume is where you would put a dry pond if you would put one somewhere else. So we were trying to reduce the amount of fill brought onto the site and ultimately impacts that would be spread across the site.
This is a dry pond, correct?
But I even think that, I don't know, maybe this can be a comment, but I'm wondering about even just like shifting it. Because Amy Elsie is a little bit less important of a facade, like shifting it there. I don't know that you don't want to try to send water uphill towards the back, of course, but there's a lot more space up front that.
Those are what the 4 trees that we do have existing on site are right around that. On that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of space where I can see where those trees are drawn. There's a lot of space between, I don't know, it can be a comment we have, but in this, I mean, I see the trees are all here, but you've got all this open space here. We'll discuss it as board. I was just curious.
So one more question, so also related to the stormwater. As this moves forward, would y'all be willing to explore making that actually like a bioswale, a rain garden, instead of just a dry pond?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, any other board questions for the applicants? Okay. We did get one public comment, and I'm gonna summarize it, but want to ask first, is there anyone here from the public speaking on this? Okay, great. So we received one comment. I assume that the board all received it and read it. But there are a few that I wanted, a few parts of it that were relevant that I wanted to read for the record. So comment was submitted by Charlie Smith, who lives at 333 Wahoo Road. And he submitted online on May 26th. The bulk of the comment was providing some really interesting history and context, which was great to read. And then I do want to summarize the points that he made that are relevant to the design. And he said, as a resident of Wahoo Road in the Doo-Wop district, I ask you as DRB members to please not accept the incorrect premise that Wahoo Road is just warehouses or just an industrial district. It is a vibrant mixed-use neighborhood where people can live, work, go to church and school, play, and even be buried. It may not have the orderliness of more strictly classified communities, but it works for the people who live here and it deserves improvement. That improvement needs to start with its architecture. It is not good enough to approve a building simply because the proposed design meets the letter of the law and is not offensive. The DuPont Wapu neighborhood deserves architecture that inspires or at least aspires. The current proposal for 1109 Wapu does neither. He then mentions that the Charles River building was exempt from DRB, which we've heard from staff is actually not correct. It was reviewed by DRB staff. It just didn't come to the full board because it wasn't a special jobs district. And then lastly, he goes on to say, I would ask that the DRB re-express its commitment to design excellence within the DuPont Wapu community by requiring improvements to the exterior of this proposed building that will make it unique, identifiable, and a good fit within the neighborhood. I would also ask that the landscaping and sidewalks be something more than minimally adequate. If Coastal Laundry can do it, surely Sunbelt Rentals can. Many thanks for your continued commitment to Charleston. With that, we will move to city staff recommendations.
All right, thank you, Aaron. For staff observations, the height, scale, and mass of the proposed building is in keeping with the surrounding buildings. Staff met with the applicants and directed them to make a few improvements, such as increasing the window sizes, better articulation of the bays. Screen fencing was wrapped around the rear of the building at the wash bay. Some landscape was added between the garage doors. The large existing trees near Wapu are being preserved. Staff's comments read, we understand that this bright green color on the building exterior is the Sunbelt identity color, but DRB has a policy of no bright or garish colors. Please tone down the green on the building exterior to be less bright / neon, but keeping this current green color on the building interior. Second comment staff has is DRB has a policy of no yellow bollards. They will need to be Charleston green or a neutral color from the building. You may have a reflective band at the top of the bollards. Please provide a detail of these bollards. And then staff recommendation is conceptual approval with the conditions noted.
Thank you. Applicant like to clarify anything in public or city staff comments?
So thank you.
Okay, great. Now we can move into board discussion and a motion.
Mr. Sam?
I'll begin. Let's see, I had a few comments, just thinking about the screen wall towards Amy Elsie and how important that is to be softened. The fact that it is higher will make it that much more visible. So the materials on that are important and need to be of good quality. I like the softer, warmer wood. But softening it with landscape will be important as well. Could you put it on the site plan? Also, I'm a little concerned from the street view. Again, ADLC counts as a real street. And the views through this gate towards the large expanse of pavement and propane tanks could use perhaps some additional screening up this side or perhaps veer the entry so that you're not looking at the giant paving and propane tanks. And so that seemed of a concern to me. What else did I get? And the same with you're looking all the way in and you're looking at the front of the dumpster. Again, trying to just soften that's a real view and needs to be dealt with. Staff has covered a lot of the other things that I mentioned.
I have no issue with the building except the color. And I don't think we need green and yellow at all. I think there are lots of more appropriate colors for Waco Road than green and yellow. You've got the sign, it's green and yellow. I also was disappointed that the building didn't engage with the street more than it did. I think the building could come up closer to the street. The stormwater could probably wrap around a little bit to allow that to happen. But I'd also rather see something that's that incorporates more kind of LID principles and is more aesthetically pleasing for the stormwater than just a dry pond. Those are my comments.
Want to go?
You go first.
I think, the public comment, sure. I think it encapsulates, and he puts it quite eloquently, what I'm thinking, and I know it's a pre-engineered metal building, right? And I know we need a place for this type of use, this type of building. But I am inclined to agree with the gentleman's letter that even with it being a pre-engineered metal building, there can, and I'm not saying it's not interesting or anything, but there can be a really serious amount of rigor brought to the design process within the constraints of that building type to generate interesting forms, an interesting architectural language. And for me, this just, it isn't quite there. We could go into the particulars, but I think that might be what do you call it when you just can't see or when you're looking at fine grain and kind of missing out on
Forest
the-
for the
Can't see the
trees.
picture.
I would encourage more or less a bit of a rethink and
Are you thinking perhaps a more sloped roof in order to sort of find that blend into in the mixed use thing, or is that a minor fix?
I wouldn't want
And
to
you
sit
don't
here
wanna-
and design the building, but yeah, that's my gut reaction.
I think from a site perspective, I was really grateful that staff sent us the ordinance from the overlay that's relevant to this specific site. Because that ordinance is in place for a reason and, we are expected to help uphold and enforce that overlay. And there were a couple parts of that overlay that I wrote down in reading it and reviewing this that I think were important. And one is that the ordinance says that for corner lots, which this technically is, they should address all applicable street frontages with regards to site and building design. I don't think yet that this site design is doing that. I think I have issue with, that large space between Wapu, which is the clear kind of main road, and having that dry pond there. I agree that it's not necessarily wrong. There are ways you could, stretch it out and wind it so that it would be more of a low impact design, but also help the building address the street better and rework the site. I think too, when we're just looking at, if we're thinking of Amy Elsie as a street, like that sidewalk should connect to, you have the sidewalk that wraps around the building, then it doesn't connect, even though your drawing's showing a sidewalk on the other side, there'd be no way to walk. I just think there's some things missing there in helping it address both street frontages. There's another thing that I think is worth mentioning that the ordinance specifically says vehicular bays shall not face any road frontage, and technically they are facing Amy Elsie. I know there have been measures taken to screen it, which, help a lot, but in doing that, because it is kind of going against the intention of the ordinance, I think that screening, to Sam's point, needs to be really thoughtful and careful and the right materials. Because technically those aren't supposed to be facing. And then there was also a part of the ordinance that was pointed out, and I feel less strongly about this one about any parking along the front or side should have screen walls between the street. This is a very small amount of parking in the front, and then the rest is kind of screened, but I think that the site itself needs a lot of restudying to be successful if we are truly upholding the intention of the overlay for this area. And agree on some of the planting comments that Bill had, but to me, that's, not as important at this point. Yeah. It will be, right, but, so. It's okay.
Is the chair allowed to make a motion?
I'm not allowed to make a motion.
I will make a motion for deferral. Not denial, but deferral. Do I need to give a grounds? I do. On the architectural direction and site design.
With deferral, we typically give specific things, right? With denial, we don't, because we aren't denying, we're saying start fresh. With deferral, we need to give kind of specific conditions, things.
Deferrals usually tweak the design and here's what you can do, and denials usually more like you kind of need to start all over.
Can I offer something to go with your motion?
Yep.
So recommend further study of stormwater facilities to incorporate LID principles and be more aesthetically pleasing. Revise the site plan to engage the street frontage in a more meaningful way and increase landscaping along the secondary street.
And I would clarify, you say street frontage, maybe frontages, just to be
Frontages,
clear that we need
yes.
both, need to be better engaged, yeah.
Okay, and from an architectural perspective, I would just say restudy the architectural direction. So if I'm to put a motion together, I need to say what you just said. How about I retract my motion, and
Okay.
you give a motion?
You want me to do it? Okay.
Yeah, and just tack it on.
Also, don't forget to mention staff comments if you'd like
Yes.
to include them or not.
Okay, so I make a motion to defer with staff comments and.
It's 1 and 2, just to be clear.
Pardon?
1 and 2.
1 and 2, yes. And further study of an architectural direction. And recommend further study of stormwater facilities to incorporate LID principles and be more aesthetically pleasing. Revise the site plan to engage.
Real quick, we're handwriting. Can you,
Okay, sorry.
Give us 1 second.
Tell me when you're ready.
Repeat the stormwater comment, please.
Recommend further study of stormwater facilities to incorporate LID principles and be more aesthetically pleasing.
Oh, yeah, okay. Continue.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Revise the site plan to engage the street frontages in a more meaningful way. Increase landscaping along the secondary street.
Okay, so we have a motion for deferral with staff comments 1 and 2. And board comments to restudy the architectural direction, to further study the stormwater, to incorporate LID principles and make it more aesthetically pleasing, revise the site plan to better engage the 2 street frontages, and increase landscaping, particularly along the secondary frontage. Is there a second?
Second.
Lucas?
Yes, in favor.
Yeah, I'm also in favor. Thank you. Thanks. All right, now we have 3309 Maybank Highway requesting conceptual approval for a new 10,000 square foot, 1-story child daycare facility. Staff, do you want to give us an overview for this?
Yep. Thank you. Again, we have some context photos before we get into the applicant's presentation. Here's just, the most expanded view of the site that we have here. Here is the site, currently from, aerial view. As well as the entrance to the, development here. Some other buildings within the development. And now we will leave it to the applicants.
Y'all need more than the 10-minute allotted? No, yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Donato. I'm with SiteCast. We're the engineers and landscape architects on the project. A little bit of background on the site. This is a 1.14 acre site on Maybank Highway. This is phase 2 of the St. John Square residential development, which you staff has shown you pictures of. Phase 1 did not come in front of this board. Phase 1 was in Charleston County, so that's why you haven't seen it. We will be using phase 1 for ingress egress, so there won't be another curb cut on Maybank. This is a general office zoning, and we are in the Johns Island Overlay District. There is a 75-foot buffer along Maybank Highway. We'll be upgrading the path that's through the buffer at the moment. I believe it's a 4-foot path, and we're going to upgrade it to 10 feet. We are saving 2 historic trees. We did remove 1 water oak, which BZA has already approved that removal. And Mr. Eubank, you brought up LID. I just want to mention on this project, we have the pond in the rear. We're connecting to the existing pond. You're not seeing it on this plan, but the existing pond for the development is right here that we'll be connecting to. We are adding a water quality unit that's going to capture our water before it enters that pond. And we're also going to be using some pervious pavers at the parking lot. We have very porous sandy soils. So we're going to take advantage of that and have some of the, be able just to reclaim the water that's going to be going in those areas. And then of course the appropriate parking and utilities and drainage we're providing.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening. I'm Adam Ferreira. I'm representing the developer and also the general contractor for the building. So the overall design intent for this building is to match the existing materials and color scheme of the other 3 buildings at the site. Don't know if we can go to, there was an image that showed.
The first image?
Yes, sir. Oh,
Sorry.
that's okay.
I think I passed it.
There we go. Oh.
The one before.
The one, so our building is a 5B building. It's a wood frame building that is sprinkled, okay? The main entrance to the building is located here. We do have the crash rated bollards, so that's an important feature to the building for child safety. That's a brand standard feature as well for this particular tenant that's going in this building. I have built a few of these buildings, so I can certainly answer more questions about it specifically. If you notice, there are certain doors that have what appears to be sort of this, fencing there. That is a requirement for the safety of the children in those classrooms. So we have little itty bitty babies. We have crawlers, we have walkers and talkers, right? That's sort of the brand description of kids in this daycare. There are just to specifically talk a little bit about the operation of the business. It is an 8 to 5 business. They're not gonna have a full commercial kitchen. They're heating foods and things of that nature, so they're not preparing foods. There's not a commercial kitchen hood or anything like that inside the building. The building itself has shingles, 30-year architectural shingles, has a lap siding, hardy siding, and board batten as well. We are piping all the gutters out through stormwater as Chris has in his plan. A couple other points to mention. Can you go to the playground portion?
The site plan?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
This?
That's fine right there. So there are a few different types of fencing that's important to understand. We have an opaque fencing here. It's a taller, white vinyl fencing, right? It's just a safety for the kids. Visually, it looks more attractive as well. It is gonna be buffered with some landscaping. There is a black, sort of rubber coated chain link fence in the back. It's back here. We have to have that as well. All these exit doors have to be fenced in, and they have to have the alarm magna lock on each one, similar with these in the front. Chris, did you want to talk at all about the pervious parking? Is that relevant at this point? Or
It's,
just
I mean,
building
it's,
itself?
yeah, I just wanted to point it out.
Okay. I didn't want to overlook it. The playground area is gonna have some concrete prep and different fencing within the playground area to keep some separation for the different age kids. Let's see, a couple more points. The HVAC units. The HVAC units are gonna be located here against the building. They're gonna be about 3 feet tall, but they're gonna have a 4 to 5 foot tall privacy fence, completely screened and opaque as well. As Chris said, there was a 75-foot buffer, so that's really not gonna be in any line of sight with vehicles passing by. And just to wrap up, we're really trying to keep this building in keeping with the existing buildings there. So it's not really the same, but it's really more like a first cousin of the buildings is the best way to describe it. Certainly can answer any questions you may have. I'm not an architect, so I don't have quite the skill set that Lossie had to explain buildings.
Thank you. Are there any board questions for the applicant? Go ahead. Thanks.
I have some question about the drainage.
Yes, ma'am.
So you say that with Charleston County is the one who, the other parcels, right, that
Correct.
review that. So you're going through the city now,
Correct,
so you have to go by the SBA requirements
yes.
for that one. So if we can go back to the plan view where they show the pond in the back. I know that you mentioned that it's an existing detention that is not shown on the plans, but I guess it's a hole there for it.
This is all detention.
Okay, so what about the one next to the playground? That's a detention area
Yes, so this is our new detention pond.
and it will be a wet
Yes, it'll
detention?
be a wet detention. and then
Okay.
We'll pipe it through here to what you're not seeing. I can't really connect it. I'd love to connect it.
Okay,
Just so we can get rid of the pipe, but it's really not possible.
okay.
I'd love to do it.
Right,
but
because
yes.
the thing I noticed, and I know that you will go through TRC and all of that, you have to have an access for that detention area. And
Yes.
you are so close to the
Yes,
fence.
We're working on that right now. You're right.
Okay.
We do need more access to the detention area. So what we are looking at, there's other several factors. And we're actually, and I didn't mention it, we're actually upgrading this pond
Okay.
because it's meeting Charleston County requirement. Charleston County requirements are not as stringent as the cities, as you're well aware. And so that will then now meet Charleston, and that will meet City of Charleston's water quality requirements after we're done with it. So that's
Okay.
one aspect that's going on. But we are also looking at, so we know that we have sandy soils. We know it's perking. I don't have a perk rate.
Okay,
And so I'm looking at getting a perk rate so that I can then pull this off at least 5 feet. I know the city wants 10 feet, but we're
20.
working on that. They've allowed me to go to 10.
okay,
And then so if I get the perk rate, not to get nerdy, sorry,
Right.
but if I get the perk rate for these areas, then that's less water that I have to detain. And then I can pull it off of the back of this fence.
okay,
And then I can give us access.
okay. And then the last one is, I see that you have an overflow in the back
Yes.
where the buffer
Yes.
is going through. Are you going to have an opening on the buffer on that one or?
Yes, I'm not showing it at the moment, but yeah, we'll have to
Okay.
have it open. They're also going through we've been through TRC twice already.
Okay.
Okay, so we're pulling these pond lines off of these trees so that we're not encroaching into that. So you'll have this is actually quite a nice tree. And so when we pull this off of this fence, when I get the math, I can do that.
Right.
It will also pull it off of these trees and then we'll have better access
Okay.
to this pond.
And my last question is, about the parking. I know that it's new parking areas, but then you also show an existing, right? So
Yes.
this is existing and the new is just the front.
Yes.
Okay,
And
And
it's
it-
still all shared.
okay, and then you will have the pervious, the same material that they were using before to match that.
Yes, they don't have a lot of, they don't have a lot of impervious materials in this parking lot, but
Okay.
we will have some in ours because,
Pervious.
well,
You mean pervious?
I mean, yes, so
Yeah.
yes, so we'll match them.
Okay.
And then we have all the legal documents, it's the same owner for both.
Okay.
And so we have all the legal easements for ingress, egress, and utilities and drainage
Okay.
for that connection.
And then the path in the front is going to be a multi-path
Yes.
concrete
Concrete.
material?
I have a couple of questions. Is the multi-use path, is the 10-foot a requirement of something?
I believe it is, and I believe it is a requirement. I think
Okay, I wasn't
Maybe.
sure.
The county's
So-
is 4 or 5. and the
Okay.
city's is 10.
So, I mean, this is a kind of an unusual situation in that you're in the city, what's next to you is in the county, and y'all are using like 14 and a half parking spaces that are actually in the county. One of your grand trees is in the county. So I'm curious where you are in the approval process with Charleston County, especially as it applies to the encroachment on that grand tree, which I think is tree number 6, 38 inch.
So
Because it could affect the overall site plan and everything else.
I believe, how about this tree? You're talking about this tree right here? This tree was evaluated by Eric. I met him on site for that, and that, I believe that's still all on our property. I believe our property line is further this way.
From what I saw, that tree was on the county side of the property line. And also moving forward, I'd really like y'all to have a site plan exhibit that shows what's existing, what's proposed. Because I had to look at an aerial to figure it out.
And we apologize for the confusion there. I think the challenges with this is there is some demo here that we have to do to kind of pull all of this off. So every dark line is certainly what's being touched. But we certainly see your point and try to figure out how to maybe create some color here, clarify that.
While we're on the
I'll double
site,
check that.
can I ask you what is this portion of, is that parking? What is that part right there?
We didn't label that as a parking spot, and it's not a dumpster. That's not.
Yeah, I was worried.
Dumpsters are already on the dike, so just so you know, there won't be a dumpster there.
No new dumpsters.
Exactly. I mean, I believe it was more for if you pulled in here and you got turned around, you could do a 3-point turn and get out.
Seems like a excessive paving in that case,
I can take a look at that.
but I didn't know what it was. And what is the paving of the playground?
So there's concrete prep to support the equipment, but then there's turf, basically. So it's grass, it's gravel underneath, and it's turf.
Okay,
Is the product.
okay, so it's not real turf, it's synthetic turf over sand permeable.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have one more question. What led y'all to use so many deciduous plants in the buffer? Because I mean, a buffer typically is there to screen things, and I don't like parking between a street and a building, but here, since you've got a 75-foot buffer, I'm kind of like, more willing to let that slide. But I'd rather see plants in the buffer that actually screen, not deciduous plants. So I was just wondering what your thought process was to include so many deciduous plants.
I mean, well, I'll be honest with you, the first thought process is make sure we meet code and make sure we're planting the required amount. And then with working with Rodney, because Rodney's already looked at this, Rodney Porter at the city's already looked at this a couple of times. I mean, we took some of his input as well on what they wanted to see and then but maybe, somewhat matching what's already here as well. Like we've been through TRC twice already.
I noticed you have two different types of fences. You've got the bright white glossy PVC fence, and you've got the aluminum fencing there,
Yes,
I
sir.
guess. Are there any other fences that and you've got the chain link?
The chain link is in the rear, same color as this fence here, it's just a, it's not forward facing, it's serviceable, maintainable, doesn't rust, but it is certainly more, affordable.
So speaking of fences, your 10-foot multi-use path on the top of the page, I guess that's the western side. It ends abruptly and there's a fence there. Do y'all plan on taking that fence out?
The neighbors.
I think we have an aerial image of the site itself today, it was in the beginning,
That you provided this one?
right. You're referring to somewhere over here, sir?
Yeah, that's, so you can see the existing path right now.
Yeah. So right here at this property line,
Yes.
there's a fence.
Okay.
So this kind of just like dead ends at the fence.
If that's the neighbor's fence, I
It's the
can't-
neighbor's fence?
I can't take it out. If it's our fence, and I don't believe it is our fence, but if it is our fence, then we can take it out.
Okay.
We can look into that.
Sure.
I have a couple of real quickies.
Questions?
Yeah. quick.
Okay.
You mentioned the fences outside the doors on the front facade.
Yes, sir.
Those have to be, there's a gate in those, right?
Yes.
And every classroom needs an egress directly from the classroom,
That's
right? Okay, and the other one was the storefront, everything's nicely aligned. Is that a 7-foot or a 6 or 7-foot datum? All the
You're talking about
storefront?
the overall height?
Yeah,
I believe it's 8 feet.
8 feet?
Yes,
8-foot doors.
I believe it's 8 feet. It could be, I mean, it could be 7. I didn't
Oh, 7.
design the building.
It's 7.
Okay, 7.
Okay. So,
Okay, great. All right, anyone from the public here to speak on this project? No, and we didn't receive anything submitted online, so move to city staff recommendations.
Perfect. Staff observations, the height, scale, and mass of the building, as well as the design direction, fits nicely within the existing development, which is, this portion is phase 2 of. Staff had a pre-submittal review with some comments for the applicants. They had originally 3 gables across the front, which looked redundant. They have changed this to the single gable and 2 shed roofs that mimic the box dormers of the neighboring building, which we support. The proposed building sits back off Maybank Highway a good distance, and there will be a nice buffer with some large existing trees within that buffer. Staff comments, number 1, the applicants have the AC units on the Maybank Highway side of the building, but given the building program and layout, there are really no other options other than moving them to the roof. The AC units are screened well with fencing, which is good, but DRB asks that more landscape screening be added in the form of shrubs and ornamental trees. Staff also recommends to choose some non-dwarf shrub species and evergreens and add in a few red cedars to the buffer. The facade facing Maybank has improved and there are some nice aspects to this facade, but staff asks that some improvements be made to this facade as it's very visible to people entering the site. If more fenestration could be added, that would be a plus. Staff comment number 3, show all fence gates on the plans and at the playground. Number 4, label everything on the elevations, including exterior lighting. Number 5, the landscape plan needs improvement. Most of the species proposed are fine, but we recommend using a local landscape architect for layout. And the 6th and final comment is provide a site plan in addition to the landscape plan for the submittal requirements. Staff's recommendation is conceptual approval with the conditions noted.
Thank you. Anything that the applicant needs to clarify on what was stated? Okay, great. Moving to board discussion and a motion.
can I ask staff a quick question? you said that they had initially proposed a three gable scheme.
Mhm.
With three equally sized gables or with?
On this elevation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, where the two box dormers are,
Mhm.
not dormer. The shed roof, that is where the other two gables were.
I think generally speaking, it's obviously very in keeping with the. I think you put it nicely, it's a first or second cousin. First cousin. First cousin. To the buildings. It's in keeping with what's around it. My only comments are rather minor, I think. I think there is something awkward with the dormers going on right now. And I see there's an added canopy because trying to break up this big forehead that's been created out of this shed roof dormer. But the eave is bigger than the canopy, it looks like. So it's kind of a redundant canopy, and I just think studying that a little bit would be helpful. Maybe it is their gable dormers, but just shorter in width than the primary gable. I don't know, but I think there's something a little awkward going on with the dormers right now. The central gable, I would suggest at least studying the general height of it, whether it's a change in the pitch or a change in the heel on the truss or whatever the roof is, such that the fascias can align with the main volume. So it drops down whatever that is, 18 inches, and it can be a continuous fascia. At least, again, studying it. Other than that, oh, one thing that does differ, it looks like it differs from the rest of the buildings on the site. And again, we're not saying make it the exact same as the rest of the buildings on site, but it does look like you have a higher, again, either top plate to the wall or heel on the truss. So even outside of the dormers, there is a bit of a big forehead going on.
I think maybe it's their doors are shorter.
That's where I'm going. So
Yeah.
to our earlier discussion, it's 7.0 head height. Maybe we look at 8.0 head height. That could really help, I think.
Tie it in.
And then the only two more. General window pattern. Again, I don't think it's way off or anything, but that central volume is crying out to be symmetrical. The opening in the central volume, it's quite a symmetrical massing, and I think that both there's kind of a bulkhead recessed portion to the volume and then the storefront. If we could see that maybe all symmetrical, then it might require adding a window in an adjacent classroom or whatever, but I think it could really benefit from that. And maybe massaging the rest of the windows too, to lean into the overall symmetry of the building, because it is a very strong, obviously symmetrical massing. And then last one was the fences that we were talking about coming out of the classroom. It is kind of a product of necessity, right? But and this would be a landscaping question, if they could be screened or at least from the front elevation, some level of planting in front of them. If that could be studied, it might not be able to happen given turning radii or egress width or whatever. But it has become a more prominent element on the facade than you'd probably want. So I think some level of screening or with plant material or another means of kind of subverting that feature on the front.
It looks like their 3D rendering is not necessarily reflecting what's on that site plan I just looked at. you show more landscaping in other areas that appeared on the site plan.
And maybe some of those features make their way in front of the fencing,
Yeah, softening those.
but that's all.
I had a few comments on the fencing and the building. Just beginning with the building itself, I agree with most of what you say. I think it doesn't necessarily have to be symmetrical in that entrance, but I do think balanced is an important description. Symmetrical is an easy way to do it. But on the Maybank side elevation, could we see see that slide? Sorry. Yeah,
Yep.
there it is. There's an odd recess in here. Which you can see it steps in right here. And comes out, and there's this large gable that's visually unsupported over here. And I find that just awkward. And I think there's better ways to address sheltering. If you're sheltering the door, what's the reason for that? There's better ways to deal with this indent with different kinds of roofing, either extend the overhang further on other areas. Plus, as we were talking about these overhangs and how they're dealing with the short doors, it would be, I think, beneficial if this overhang came out further. Actually, it was more functional. And like on the rest of the shopping center, the overhangs are large and actually do function as sheltering for pedestrians along the sidewalk out in front of the storefronts, sort of directly across from it. You're familiar with it.
Are you saying at the rake?
What's that?
Are you saying at the rake so that?
Oh, I'm saying that overhang needs to be big enough to be a real overhang and not just a sort of a stick-on overhang. And here, actually at this part, I think this whole facade needs to be studied to be cleaned up. Once you realize that this is a really odd big cantilever sticking out in an unbalanced way, I think it's worth studying and seeing if there's a simpler, cleaner, again, sort of working on that balance idea. As far as the fencing, you're talking about this would be the PVC fencing here? I shouldn't be asking questions. I should have asked that earlier. I believe it says PVC fence to screen the stuff. And that's that bright white facing Maybank Highway and that landscaping and all that stuff. I think that's inappropriate. I think any of the vinyl PVC fencing is sort of garish and if you could use real materials, not the PVC isn't real, but some more substantial natural materials like wood or even painted wood or iron, aluminum, something like that. It just suggests some longer term substantial construction. And same with the playground area. Just on the fencing, I think it needs to be higher quality. I think that's all I have.
So the air conditioned units, they're going to be facing Maybank
Yes.
below, but I thought that's, you can do that?
Or we don't
It-
prefer it, but
Yeah, I think it's the only option other than putting them on the roof. Is
Okay,
essentially it.
so I'm no architect, but putting it on the roof is pretty extensive, right? Like,
yeah,
It's
it's
a
gonna
lot
cause
harder.
problems. I mean, just, they don't need that expensive. They can deal with it in a nice way with landscaping and screening, and
it's acceptable, okay.
it seems acceptable. I mean, it's still kind of iffy if there's some way to put it down the side where.
Yeah.
With the program, I'd rather be adjacent to the parking than the kiddos.
Yeah.
Right, no,
Not
I
next
got
to the
you, yes,
playground.
yes.
And really,
Yeah.
I was fine with it.
and they have non-PVC fencing. And plant material in front of it, so, and a
Well,
buffer.
it's different. On one elevation, in the elevation,
I'm
it
looking at the
shows
site plan.
PVC. And then on the plan, it calls out, perhaps metal fencing. So we've got a few conflicts in the drawings that need to be worked out. I know it's a work in progress. But, again, quality, good screening, no bright white PVC. Is what I'm coming from.
I had a comment about the multi-use path, which, I mean, right now it's kind of like a multi-use path to nowhere. But at the same time, I think the alignment of that needs to be kind of a little bit smoother, more gentle than it is now. And also keep in mind that pretty much every guideline or regulation for a multi-use path talks about an 8-foot vertical clearance. And just be very sure that with the existing plant material and proposed plant material, that you're not encroaching on that vertical clearance with any plant material.
So the multi-path go to the other side too, like the existing parking, continue with the buffer, or is just dead end there? Just because it's gonna be pedestrian crossing there. And
There's
they usually
there's a
come
more narrow path on
On the other
phase
side.
one
'Cause-
part.
Yeah, because usually like you try to bring that path closer to the front of Maybank, you know, and put like a stop.
You're asking why it's.
I mean, and
like that.
actually, I mean, to me,
Like
it's
it's going
redundant
like-
because there is a bike lane on Maybank Highway,
Yeah, take that on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right on that.
but still,
Of course, you're right into a fence here. So.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just usually the pedestrian crossing go, you know, closer to the highway. So that way you have a stop bar, so people, they know that it's no people crossing in the middle of that, you know,
Yeah.
driveway.
But that's also an existing,
Yeah,
drive.
I know.
and the curb cuts are already there.
It's just, no seems
already
safe
there,
for
yeah.
kids, but. Is there a mission?
Let's organize. Is everybody okay with my architectural comment?
Yes.
Rethink PVC.
Yes.
What's your mission first?
Well, I want to get the
Oh,
things
okay.
sorted out.
Before you, okay.
And increase any of the awnings to make them more functional.
Any canopies.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, should be deep enough.
And the Maybank.
The
facade,
Maybank
that's-
facade needs further study.
That's important to me.
Leave it at that.
What else? The path.
Yeah, I can just say, you know, restudy alignment of path and associated planting.
Anything?
I think mine is more like just a general, you know, information that I was asking, but
Yeah.
it doesn't relate to,
Okay.
you know, the.
Did you want to add anything?
I think staff comments cover everything else.
Okay. Quick set of comments.
1 through 6.
Okay. I would like to make a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments 1 through 6, right? And board comments. I'll go slow. Restudy the shed dormers and general eave heights. With the recommendation of aligning any gabled dormers at the fascia.
Sorry, can you say that last part, realign?
Any gabled dormers aligning at the fascia with the main mass. Restudy the general balance of the main facade. Not symmetry.
You're not opposed.
With special attention given to the main entrance area. Study 8-foot head heights at all openings. Study screening of the front facade child safety fencing, the metal ones. Consider alternate fencing materials for the PVC areas. Look for all canopies, study depth such that they're functional canopies. Study Maybank Highway facade with special attention on the notch, the recessed area. The last one is restudy the alignment of the path and the associated planting.
Okay. So we have a motion for conceptual approval with board comments, excuse me, staff comments 1 through 6. And board comments to restudy shed dormers and general eave heights with recommendation of aligning gabled dormers at the fascia. Restudy general balance of main facade with special attention to main entrance. Study the 8-foot head heights at all openings. Study screening of front facade safety fencing. Consider alternatives to PVC fencing. Study depth of all canopies so that they are more functional. Study the Maybank Highway facade with a special attention to the recessed area. And then restudy the alignment and associated plantings of the multi-use path. Did I miss anything?
What did you say about the facade?
Which,
The balance comment with special attention given.
restudy general balance of main facade with special attention to main entrance. Everything? All right.
And we say something about providing additional information on the parking lot for existing, I don't know if that was, existing versus new stuff.
I don't care
Like
that that's
you
part of the
were clear.
That wasn't part of the
Okay.
motion.
Second,
But we do have, in staff comments, they asked for a site plan in addition to the landscape plan, which should cover it. Okay,
second,
Bill seconds. Okay, great. Adriana? Yes. Sam?
Favor.
I'm also yes in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carried. All right, final item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the May 5th meeting.
move to approve.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Adriana? Sam?
It's not there, but I.
Yeah, that's what I'll also be in
Seemed
favor.
appropriate.
Yes, so approved. Thank you.
Don't worry, they're great.
There we go.
I feel like we should applaud Aaron and you guys.
Great.
And your first time meeting.
Taking it.
We all knew.
This is my second time.
So
You don't
we
get
need a motion to
applause.
adjourn.
Do we just
Do
adjourn?
we need a motion to adjourn?
No, you just float
We're
away.
done. Oh. Just always